Trump strikes at the heart of public media. In a bold and controversial move, the president pulls the plug on PBS and NPR funding, calling them biased and obsolete as the battle lines are drawn. Is this a war on propaganda or a war on press freedom? On May 2nd, U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order slashing subsidies to two United States public broadcasters' public broadcasting service, PBS and National Public Radio, NPR, on the evening of May 1 SD. Trump alleged that both organizations have engaged with biased and partisan news coverage. The executive order said that government funding of media outlets today is outdated. Unlike in 1967, when the CPB was established, today, the media landscape is filled with abundant, diverse, and innovative news options. Government funding of news media in this environment is not only outdated and unnecessary, but corrosive to the appearance of journalistic independence. At the very least, Americans have a right to expect that if their tax dollars fund public broadcasting at all, they find only fair, accurate, unbiased, and non-paid partisan news coverage. The order further instructed the board of the Corporation of Public Broadcasting, CPB, who distributes funding to PBS and NPR stations, to cease direct funding to the maximum extent allowed by LAW in a social media post. The White House accused the outlets of receiving millions from taxpayers to spread radical woke propaganda disguised as news. National Public Radio, better known as NPR, is national syndicated to a network of more than 1,000 public radio stations in the U.S., with headquarters based in Washington, D.C. and Culver City, California. NPR's two largest revenue sources are corporate sponsorships and fees paid by NPR member organizations to support a suite of programs, tools, and services, according to NPR.org. Its member stations are owned by nonprofit organizations, including public school districts, colleges, and universities. NPR says less than 1% of its funding comes from public sources. NPR released a 618-word statement, vowing an immediate challenge as well, saying we will vigorously defend our right to provide essential news, information, and life-saving services to the American public. We will challenge this executive order using all means available. NPR Director Catherine Marr estimated in March that the radio station would receive about $120 million from the CPB in 2025, less than 5% of its budget. PBS is an American public broadcaster and non-commercial free-to-air television network based in Arlington, Virginia, founded on November 3, 1969. It is a publicly funded nonprofit organization and the most prominent provider of educational programs to public television stations in the U.S. PBS is funded through a combination of government funding, private donations, and other sources like foundations and corporate sponsorships. It receives a congressional appropriation each year of about $500 million. More than 40 million Americans listen to NPR Public Radio each week, and 36 million watch a local television station from the PBS network each month, according to their estimates. Paula Kerger, CEO of PBS, called the president's order blatantly unlawful and said it threatens our ability to serve the American public with educational programming, as we have for the past 50-plus years. However, the CPB budget has already been approved by Congress through 2027. Patricia Harrison, CEO of the CPB, said the organization is not a federal executive agency subject to the president's authority. Congress directly authorized and funded CPB to be a private, nonprofit corporation wholly independent of the federal government. In creating CPB, Congress expressly forbid any department, agency, officer, or employee of the United States to exercise any direction, supervision, or control over educational television or radio broadcasting. Earlier on March 16th, Donald Trump had signed an order to strip back federally funded news organization Voice of America, accusing it of being anti-Trump and radical. However, on April 23rd, a federal judge ordered the Trump administration to restore all jobs and funding for the Voice of America and other U.S.-backed news outlets, ruling that efforts to dismantle it violated the law and Constitution. Media rights group RCF warned on May 2nd about an alarming deterioration in press freedom in the United States under President Donald Trump, as well as unprecedented difficulties for independent journalists around the world. Paris-based Reporters Without Borders, which has been tracking press freedom for the last 23 years, said its main index had fallen to its lowest ever level for the first time in the history of the index. The conditions for practicing journalism are poor in half of the world's countries and satisfactory in fewer than 1 in 4. An annual review of media freedom globally by the charity concluded, are as if editorial director Ombo Canada highlighted the role of economic pressures in undermining fact-based reporting, with many independent outlets having to close because of funding difficulties. Although spending on online advertising was still rising, hitting $247.3 billion in 2024, according to RS. If a growing share is captured by online giants Facebook, Google, or Amazon rather than media companies. When journalists are impoverished, they no longer have the means to resist the enemies of the press. Those who champion disinformation and propaganda bookends said in a statement, with the Trump administration trying to strangle people's voices and cutting funds to independent organizations, they may have overstepped its authority in holding back funds appropriated to the outlets by Congress. Will press freedom continue to shrink under Trump, or will the courts hold the administration accountable?